Well, good morning. I'm Tyler Don Rosenquist of Ancient Bridge Ministries, and today I'm gonna take the body to the woodshed. Really. If you haven't heard of Jaden K. Smith, I don't know what planet you've been living on, but he's just one in a long line of fake outrages perpetrated on people's inboxes, evidently he's this hacker who can magically, defying the laws of computer science, hack you simply by being on your friends list. And somehow somebody actually found out that this guy was responsible for this happening en masse, right? No. How did anyone even get this guy's name in the first place? How did anyone figure out that they were being hacked because of this guy? It's just one of these improbable stories that gets into our mind and gets into people's outrage zone, and they send out a warning without even thinking about it. So, we all get these private messages. Oh, there's this hacker. And this is his name, and this is what he's doing. Don't accept friend requests from him. Well, he used to be called something like Anju something. It was the exact same wording. And then before that, it was a couple, a Christopher and a Jennifer something, or I can't even remember, even though I have probably gotten 50 of these things. And I know with Jaden, I heard about him at least 20 times over the past 3 or 4 days. It got mind-numbing. So, what's the problem? What's the big problem here? Well, the big problem is, this was easy to track down whether this was true or not. All someone had to do was enter Jaden K. Smith into a Google search. It would have taken less than 30 seconds, even if you type slow. And it had made international news at this point. It's not just Snopes, and I don't care if you hate Snopes. Not trusting Snopes is not an excuse to send things out just because the only source you can find disagreeing with them is Snopes. And it's never just. It's urban, let's say there's Hoaxlayer, urban legends. In this case, it was all the news agencies around the world were outing this hoax. But what's the big deal? The big deal is we're playing with a person's name. Okay? And if you think it's harmless, okay, so Jaden K. Smith. Okay, so there's nobody on Facebook actually named Jaden K. Smith until yesterday or the day before, when somebody actually made a fake Facebook account and let it be open, and you should have seen the death threats coming in. And I'm serious, these people were not kidding. When we spread these urban legends, these hoaxes, we only send it to believers. Well, who are they going to send it to? I saw scary stuff yesterday. I mean, like I said, death threats. Profanity worse than I was capable of before I became a believer. And let me tell you, that's an impressive level of profanity. One thing I really want you to think of is who's coming up with these names. And maybe what are their motivations? I mean, it may just be to have fun. It may be to see if they can go viral, if they can create a panic. Because as soon as they get you outraged and scared, they know that a lot of times people will stop thinking. They'll ignore all the red flags of the fact that there's actually no evidence. And if there was a massive hacking of this magnitude going on in the world, that it would be making national news and people would be talking about it openly and not just in private Facebook messages. But what if there's a guy named Jaden Smith and everybody just wants to ruin his life? Ever think about that? Like, there's this one that I got last week, and it was foul. It had a picture of a Hispanic man on it, and on it it said, "This guy goes by many names, and he could be living anywhere." Well, all of a sudden, you've got every Hispanic man that looks like this guy under suspicion for what? Child molestation. No details. No details about the city it happened in, about the year it happened in. Nothing that'll allow you to trace it back to newspaper articles or any sort of thing. And you've got a picture of a Hispanic man, and now every Hispanic man everywhere in the world, because it didn't even just say it was America, okay, in any English-speaking country. Now, every guy who looks like this is under suspicion for child molestation. He can't prove it's not him because no names were used. He can't prove it wasn't him because, he can't. You know what? I'm going to just say something right now. There are some spiteful people in this world, and I wouldn't put it past an ex-wife or an ex-girlfriend or just, a coworker or somebody who's nasty or a neighbor involved in a dispute to do something like this and to try and destroy someone's life. Or maybe someone in the KKK. Maybe this is just a racist. Maybe this is somebody who is so anti-illegal immigration that they're willing to just put some random guy's picture on there. But like I said, there was no information whatsoever. Now, I told you about what happened with the Jaden K. Smith fake page. People weren't thinking it was fake. People were making death threats. Well, what happens when, I don't know, say the school crossing guard just happens to look like this guy, and some mentally unbalanced dad sees him put his hand on the back of his daughter's, on his daughter's back because she's starting to stumble and decides he's the child molester he saw. What if a potential boss sees a guy who looks just like him? Because they didn't pick anybody with really distinguishing facial features. No, he just looks like, there are people in this world who look like a normal guy, and he looked like a normal guy. And so now everybody who looks like a normal Hispanic guy, gosh, my hair's I'm starting to look like Einstein here, but not in the intelligent way, in the crazy hair way. Look, that's a real person's picture. And no matter how outraged you are about child molestation, you don't even have any evidence that it ever happened. You got a person's picture. You've got every single guy in the world who looks like that guy. Now you're calling into suspicion. We can't do that. The Bible's very clear about Lashon Hara, evil tongue. Well, how about evil fingers? How about evil share buttons? If we don't have absolute proof that a crime was committed and that this guy is guilty of it, and if we do, believe me, we'll have a name and we'll have a city and there will be something. And we can't just say, well, I would rather make a mistake than not warn people. You're making a mistake with somebody else's life. That's not your mistake to make. Like I said, what if this is a nasty, vicious ex-wife, just crazy person? Gosh, right now, I know one of my friends right now who is dealing with something like this, and it is ugly, and it is public, and it is on Facebook, and there's nothing he can do to defend himself against the accusations. He just has to hope that people don't take them seriously. Look. How would you feel if that was your picture on there, or your husband's picture, or your son's picture, or someone who looked like him? Is it harmless then? Is it a simple mistake then for someone to, look, anybody can justify anything they want to do if they really want to do it. Well, we're dealing with real people's names, real people's photos. We're responsible for anything that happens to said people because of our actions. I have never gotten anything in my inbox that ended up being anything but a hoax. And there's a problem. You see, when we're sending out this garbage and people can check it and fact check it, and then we tell them about the Bible, why should they put it in a different category? Well, they shouldn't. Once we prove ourselves to be not fact-checking, well, they're going to assume we're not going to fact-check at all, and we can't say, well, I got it from my mom, or my son, or my best friend, or my husband, and I just assume they checked it out. Why would we expect them to be more diligent than we are? Truth is, people just send these things. They get outraged, they get scared, and they hit that share button over and over and over and over again. It's just the way of the world, folks. Look, if you identify yourself as a believer, there are specific laws that we cannot pass on accusations. And once you have a person's picture, and once you have a person's name, or if there is any other identifying, if there are phone numbers, if there are anything, we cannot pass it on. Okay? And what are we teaching our kids? Well, as long as we don't know this guy, it's okay to just ruin a potential life. And you may think I'm being melodramatic, but you know, things like this have happened before. Mistaken identity happens, and it ruins lives. You know, I'll tell you something, taking a picture and then attaching it to allegations of child molestation is identity theft if it is not true. And since there were no names and no information, yeah, that's identity theft. You are taking this person in his picture and you are making him into a child molester. You have changed his identity and he can't do anything about it. His family can't do anything about it. I mean, how awful is that? It's horrifying. And if it was a member of your family, someone you love, someone your friends, you'd be screaming and wondering why on earth people would forward such a thing, and you wouldn't be thinking it was harmless. Anyway, so that's my little rant. And you know what? I'm not trying to pick on anyone. And if you did it, I'm not trying to pick on you, but a heads up. We need to get our house in order. And we can't be doing worldly things by worldly methods. You know, if God wants these guys exposed and this is real, then there are plenty of non-believers out there who are only too happy to forward this to everyone they know. We don't have to do God's work in the devil's ways. It's not worth it. I'm not willing to bear the responsibility of what happens to people. And I'll tell you something, I have been victim of enough false accusations in my life that I couldn't disprove, because how do you disprove something that never happened? And I'm not willing to do it to other people. No. Especially when it's very easily Googled. If we care enough about people, not to scare them, not to lie to them, and not to lie about them. Okay? So, that's it. You know, be outraged if you want, unsub if you want, unfriend me if you want. But some things have to be said. We can't act like the world and preach the gospel. And we can't call ourselves Torah observant. That's for sure.